Master Ashley, I drew you a bath.
The bathtub's not even full.
I said I drew you a bath.
Is that an Alfred Pennyworth joke?
Of course it is.
Oh, well, that's good, because your geek history lesson on Alfred Pennyworth, the butler of Batman, is now in session.
I also drew you a shower.
Ooh, fabulous. And welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Pennyworth Inman. Welcome to your Mind University, because Geek History Lesson is what we like to call a Mind University. That is a place where you are going to learn about one character, concept, or team of pop culture that we're going to teach you in less than an hour. And today's episode is all about who, Ashley?
Alfred Pennyworth!
Yes, Alfred Pennyworth, the butler of Batman, because we have Batman fever still from Batman v Superman. So we're going to talk about all the butlers of Batman. There's only been one, but we're going to talk about all the butlers of Batman. And if, in case you feel like you need to leave this podcast at any time and go dust the statue of William Shakespeare, I'm going to tell you to stop.
Oh.
Because at the very end of the show, near the end, we're going to have a fabulous discussion with Batman and Robin Eternal writer James Tynion.
What?
Yes, the fourth, the amazing James. He's going to be here, so you should stick around to that, because, you know, if there was ever an Alfred expert, it would be him.
Would be Mr. Tynion the fourth.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right, so let's jump into the first section of this podcast, because Alfred doesn't like tardiness. He loves punctuality. The 10-cent origin, where we give you a Cliff Notes version of every detail that you would need to know at a fancy cocktail party that could be worked by Alfred.
It's true. So Alfred Pennyworth's full name is, in fact, Alfred Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth.
Wow, Thaddeus.
Thaddeus, I know, right? He is a DC Comics character, of course, a very popular Batman family character created by Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson. So excited I almost choked on the name. He first appeared in Batman number 16 from April of 1943. He's a wartime baby. He is Bruce Wayne's butler, former guardian, and father figure. His aliases have included Thaddeus Crane, Thaddeus Middleton, the Eagle, and Outsider. More on that later. His abilities include being a retired British intelligence operative. Apparently, that is a superpower now.
That's an ability?
Yeah.
Okay.
Being a skilled actor. That is an ability. Emergency medical training, computer and mechanical proficiency, and being an expert in domestic sciences. In which I can only assume he has a PhD.
That means dusting and vacuuming, folks.
F yeah. And he has, of course, famously been played by Michael Caine in the Dark Knight trilogy, Sean Pertwee on Gotham, and Jeremy Irons in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
You forgot Michael Gough in Batman, 1989.
I didn't forget.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't forget.
He's one of the best parts of that movie, actually.
That's true. Is it Michael Gough or Michael Gough?
I'm a stupid American. I could say these names all wrong.
Well, Michael, you're a swell lad.
He is deceased.
Well, Michael, you were a swell lad when you were here. Why don't we do the Meet Cute part of the podcast?
The Meet Cute podcast is the part of this podcast where we stole a term for romantic comedies, and we tell you where we first met these characters. Ashley, I have a feeling that I know your answer, but I want to hear it anyway. Where did you first meet Alfred Thaddeus Pennyworth?
Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth.
I don't accept the crane.
I do, because I like to pretend that he's related to Niles and Frasier. Of course, as with...
You know, that means the Scarecrow is related to Frasier now, right?
Oh, F.
Jonathan Crane is now a weird cousin of Frasier.
Headcanon accepted. He's from Martin's side of the family.
Well, he's also a psychologist.
Oh, the Elseworlds stories I could write. Of course, it was Batman the Animated Series. Alfred is a huge part of that. It is the very classic bald on top, little pencil-thin mustache, sarcastic, surprisingly funny Alfred Pennyworth. So yes, Batman the Animated Series, because I was a child of the 90s. Where did you first meet cute Mr. Pennyworth?
Well, my meet cute has already been foreshadowed by the 10-cent origin, because Michael Gough, or Go, however you want to say his name, we don't know.
Someone will tell us on Twitter.
was my first introduction to Alfred, because that was one of my first introductions to Batman, that movie. And I always liked his Alfred. I really liked his Alfred. I thought he was spunky. I thought...
Spunky is not a word I would think of for Alfred, but I feel like it's appropriate for his performance.
He was spunky. He knew what to do. And I thought it was interesting because he had the feeble old manness down, but you could kind of tell that he wasn't.
He's tricksy.
Yes, he's very smart, and that's what I appreciated about him. And of course, when I read the comic books, I instantly became fascinated by some of the early Batman, the early Nightfall comic books about how...
What a great time to get into comics.
That's when I jumped into Batman, was like almost right before Nightfall, and then Nightfall hit and happened, and that's why I love Asbats.
And then Night Quest happened.
Night Quest, Nightfall. Yep. Yeah. Nightfall, Night Quest, Night's End.
Yes, there you go.
And Alfred is such a mystery wrapped in an enigma. He's such he has a skill in everything. Like, he's skilled in everything. And to me, that's fascinating. Like, I love these characters where you're not quite certain what they're good at, but they're good at everything.
Yeah. So here's a fun story before we go into History 101. When I was 19, right before I moved to the States, my mom and I were having dinner one night, and my mom is not a comics pop culture person. So she was like, okay, explain Batman to me and like why you like Batman. So I was trying to explain all the Robins and the Batgirls. And then I got to Alfred, and she was like, oh, I know Alfred. He was my favorite part of the TV show. And he was like the only thing that she knew about was Alfred.
Really?
Yeah, so he was the thing that stuck with her from watching the Batman 66 show as a little kid, and I thought that was very sweet.
That is very sweet.
Yeah.
And your mom's a very smart lady for picking that detail out. But... man, Alfred in Batman 66.
He's not.
He's weird.
You're not good, yeah.
He's really weird. I don't know. I don't know what Bill Dozier, the producer of that series, I don't know what his direction to this actor was, and I don't know the actor's name.
I think I have it in my notes.
But, oh my Lord, I don't know what the choices this guy made for Alfred. Creepy.
So we recommend you heading over to YouTube and searching for those.
There you go. Yes. All right, now let's move into the History 101, the main meat of this section, where Ashley is going to give you so much Alfred,
for real though,
Thaddeus Pennyworth information that you are going to be an Alfred Thaddeus Pennyworth expert.
Yes. Okay, so in his first appearance, like we said earlier, Batman 16, Alfred Pennyworth does not look the way that you would expect him to look.
Wait, what?
I know. I'm gonna lay it all down for you. He really looks like a bumbling, overweight detective in plaid. He looks like kind of a homeless American Sherlock Holmes.
Whoa. What? A homeless American Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? I want to hear what your description is, because I know what the original Alfred looks like, and to believe me, I would never describe him as a homeless American Sherlock Holmes.
Well, that's okay. So, like, I read this issue, and I looked at all the pictures online, and like that's what I thought. I was like, he looks like a homeless, like, fat Sherlock Holmes.
He's a portly fellow with a bald spot. I mean, But
he mumbles, like he falls all the time, and he's always kind of disheveled, like he's not as put together.
But he wears a suit. How do you get homeless?
It's the disheveledness of it all, and the dirt on his face.
He's not
and
that
stuff.
disheveled, but
compared to Bruce Wayne, he's pretty
I would
disheveled.
call him like a bumbling do-right. I don't know.
But it's the plaid is because he's wearing that like deerstalker hat and like the same kind of herringbone plaid that you're used to seeing Sherlock in.
I didn't know where you got to. Homeless American Sherlock
because
Holmes.
It is a point where he was not English in his first incarnation that comes later.
That's very true.
So
I would say homeless American Sherlock Holmes is actually what we saw in Elementary. Whoa!
Yeah, except he's actually a Scottish guy playing British. But
continue.
Again, given that he's a Batman character and Batman is supposed to be the DCU and thereby the world's greatest detective, I think it's really funny that he kind of looks like fat Sherlock Holmes. Like I thought that was like, I was like, oh, that's very ironic. Like, well done, Bill Finger. The classic Alfred Pennyworth with the mustache is a derivative of the actor who played Alfred in the first television serials, a man named William Austin, who was famous for his...
The movie serial.
Sorry, the movie serials. You mean they weren't on television?
Nope.
That wasn't cross-branding. Famous for his pencil-thin facial hair. That was the kind of the look that he always booked gigs on.
Interesting.
And William Austin was born in the British colony in Guinea, like guinea pigs. And he went to school in England. And this is the reason why the modern age Alfred is English, because they hired this actor who happened to be British. And then everybody liked that and they wrote it into the comics.
That's a great move.
Yeah.
It's also very similar to Superman, because a lot of Superman, early Superman, comes from the radio serials.
That's where Kansas comes from, is it not?
No.
Oh, I thought it was from the radio show.
No.
Well, I'm making stuff up. This is not my Superman episode.
Let's not go down the rabbit hole of Superman. This is all about Alfred.
And the in-comics continuity changed Alfred to appear more like his on-screen counterpart in Detective Comics number 83 in January of 1944. This is Alfred's first retcon about a year or so, less than a year, 10 months into his existence. And the explanation for why this happens is that Alfred goes on vacation to a health resort in order to slim down, and he comes back looking like the classic Alfred.
Just like Daphne and Frasier.
Yeah, he goes to vet camp.
Alfred is so connected to Frasier. This is insane.
Bringing it back around.
Who knew?
Yeah. It is also worth noting that by 1944, Alfred has the look that we know him by today. Unless you're talking about Elseworlds or in the film universe, he looks the same, basically.
You know, that's an interesting fact. I would also think about that. Like, so this is 1945?
1944.
1944.
January 1944.
Yeah, Alfred doesn't change a lot. He's basically, that's interesting that he's now locked into the character that he will be for the next 70 years.
Until they make him a robot or a head in a jar.
There you go.
A good look is a good look, man. Like,
yep.
There you go.
You can't be that mustache.
Right. Alfred was originally conceived as a comedic foil for the more serious Batman and Robin. And in the Golden Age, when you're thinking about like Batman and Robin being the serious ones, this will tell you how Alfred behaved. Because he's often trying to help them with their deductions and detective work, and he basically hilariously fails and accidentally helps.
Yeah, because he wants to be a detective when the comics start.
Yes. Mm-hmm. His first solo story was a 4-page backup in Batman number 20, and lasting and then they continued to serialize these stories, lasting until Batman number 36, but skipping Batman 35. So he had 15 backups over 16 issues. And the entire plot of these stories is recycled every time. It's Alfred accidentally solving these crimes. Like he trips going around a corner and catches the crook, or he falls on top of the clue that's going to help everybody in the end. Obviously, this aspect of Alfred's personality is pretty quickly dropped because in the modern era, and I would say from about even the Silver Age on, Alfred is a very valuable or even invaluable team member of the Batman family.
Very capable.
Yes. Incredibly capable. Eventually, Alfred is established as a retired actor and a retired intelligence officer, a man of many talents and many careers. Although which war he has been a part of kind of works on a Marvel-inspired rolling timeline where they just kind of keep pushing it up as we get further and further away from the 1930s. And it is also established that in the pre-crisis DCU, that Alfred's father, Jarvis, who we hypothesized much on in our Edwin Jarvis episode, died, and Alfred swore that he would carry on his father's legacy and serve the Wayne family, so that's why he went into kind of domestic service for them. Mm-hmm. And originally, Alfred shows up and introduces himself to Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, and is like, "Hey, I want to work for you?" ? And when I say valet, I don't mean the dude who parks their car. A valet or a valet is basically a manservant who helps you get dressed, who helps you pick out your clothes for the day, who organizes your schedule. If you are
waxes your bad ears.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Downton Abbey fan, you'll recognize the word valet. In the post-crisis DCU, Alfred goes to work for Thomas and Martha Wayne, and then they have a baby named Bruce Wayne, and he becomes the guardian of the baby, Bruce, following their death. Back to the 1950s.
Back to the 1950s.
Yeah, we've gone like 10 years. Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, they open the door, they meet Alfred, and they kind of have this not so aside where they're like, we don't really want to hire this guy because he could discover our secret identities. But he is so pitiful that we just have to let him work for us and pay him anyway. So they hire Alfred out of pity.
That Dick Grayson, he's such a caring fellow.
He is. Actually, Dick is more the one who's like, well, but he's really sad. Like, we could take him out of the rain. He's like, I don't want
Bruce, he's like a puppy. We got to rescue him.
Robin, no. I can't do Batman.
Come on, Bruce. Let's do it.
During the events of Batman number 16, again, Alfred's first appearance, he struggles to fight a burglar that lets himself into their home and accidentally discovers Bruce and Dick's secret identity because he stumbles and opens a sliding panel that leads to the Batcave and falls down into it, injuring himself. So Batman and Robin really aren't that clever after all if this idiot they let into their home discovered their secret identity.
I know, the robber could have found it too.
I know, right? When Batman and Robin are captured and bound and gagged later in the same issue in a theater, Alfred follows them in order to try and aid his new masters and accidentally winds up saving the day kind of by falling all over the place.
Oh, that Alfred.
Yeah, for real. Like, that should have been the sitcom.
Oh, that Alfred.
And this storyline, this plot of his initial appearance is reprised and celebrated in Batman number 110 from September of 1957, less than 15 years later, because he's so popular and so iconic by this time. In this issue, Alfred wakes up in his room at Wayne Manor and follows a moaning sound down into the Batcave, which is kind of weird, where he meets...
Yeah, this is going... Wait. Is this fit for children?
Brown chicken, brown cow.
Okay.
Yeah, where he meets Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson dressed up as Batman and Robin, and they're moaning and, like, crying out because they're so injured. And like, oh, help me, Alfred.
Oh, they're not like, Alfred, we look awesome in these costumes.
I mean, Dick Grayson's like that all the time, but...
Yeah, Batman, look at my legs. Only I can pull out a Speedo.
Heck yes.
Of course you can. Oh, Alfred, what are you doing?
Oh my God, I fell down the stairs. That's exactly what it's like. So Alfred, of course, tends to their wounds because he went from being a total, like, foppish fool to, like, I can do surgery. And they basically decide that he is so useful that he deserves their trust. And he can stay on helping Batman and Robin in addition to helping Dick Grayson or Bruce Wayne. From this point forward, so by 1957... he is a part of the main DCU continuity and not only looking after Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, but their counterparts. And he is their confidants, often gathering information kind of counter to each other, like when they're fighting, naming the person who can facilitate a healing between the two of them.
The
mediator, yeah.
Yep.
And like any good supporting member of any comic book superhero family, Alfred's dedication to the Bat family soon will lead to him becoming a villain.
What? No.
Yeah, it happens to like
actually,
everyone.
Oh, that Alfred.
That's right.
Ding. Wait. Oh, that Alfred. Ding. There you
go. Oh, that Alfred.
Yep. Two O's.
Two O's, yeah. No H. In Detective Comics number...
there's an H.
No, there's no H.
Oh, my God.
In Detective Comics number 340, which was published in June of 1964, Alfred pushes... Sure. Maybe. Alfred pushes Batman and Robin out of the way from a falling boulder and is seemingly smushed to death by the offending rock.
Uh-oh.
And then some 16 issues later, in Detective Comics number 356 from October of 1966, it is revealed that Alfred did not, in fact, die,
dun, dun, dun.
but was revived
dun, dun, dun.
by Dr.
I don't know. Who?
Music cue.
Dun, dun, dun.
Brandon Crawford.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
That very famous Batman villain, Brandon Crawford.
There's no reason why you should know his name.
Dr. Brandon. You know, I heard he's going to be the villain of the first Ben Affleck solo movie.
Dr. Henry Cavill.
Dr. Brennan Crawford. Sounds like a dentist.
It does sound like a dentist. Alfred's resurrection had unexpected consequences, like they do, including pasty white skin, not unlike the very popular Joker at the time, with circular markings, superhuman strength, telekinesis, and a bloodthirsty desire to murder Batman and Robin at all costs.
I've read this storyline of Batman as the outsider, or Alfred as the outsider.
It's amazingly awful. And this evil Alfred, like Jason just said, calls himself, quote, the outsider, end quote. And he spends his time sending his minions out to fight Batman and Robin. He's actually not on panel very often. And his minions include the famous Grasshopper Gang and Zatanna, even.
You want to hear a fun fact?
Please.
The Outsider, if you remember a Batman storyline called R.I.P. That Grant Morrison wrote that led to the death of Batman in Final Crisis, there was a big theory about who was doing this to Batman, who was going to be the final villain. And the number one theory online was that it was Alfred as the Outsider again, which made me laugh out loud every time I read it.
But if you could do that and make it like a really hardcore, gritty story, it'd be pretty impressive.
I think it's impossible.
I agree, but I mean, they made Mxyzptlk interesting, so anything's possible.
Yeah, but Mxyzptlk was never an ally of Superman.
That's true.
It'd be like Lois Lane becoming a villain.
I think that's happened.
In main continuity.
Yeah.
But staying a villain.
Yes, you're right. The only time that Alfred actually appears on panel as the Outsider is in Detective Comics number 356, previously mentioned, when he is bathed in rays from a regeneration machine, go with it, it's comics, while fighting Batman, and is returned to normal with no memory of his time as the Outsider. So over 16 issues, over 2 years, he gets one scene on panel where it's not just like his hand, and then he never remembers. So following the Outsider incident, it is revealed that Alfred had a relationship with the DC heroine Mademoiselle Marie.
Oh, nice.
She's a French intelligence officer who was part of the original Checkmate.
Cool.
And when he was an English intelligence officer, obviously working together in occupied France during World War II, they knocked boots a little bit. She got pregnant and had a baby girl.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alfred Jr.
Not quite.
Oh.
Her Alfred's daughter is named Julia Remarque. This will not be her only appearance in the storyline. And they reunite for a little while. This story point during their reunion is immediately erased post-crisis and treated like it never happened. Then we go all the way forward because the thing about Alfred is that even though he's an important supporting character, he is ultimately a supporting character.
Yeah.
So we're already at Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Wow, we jumped like 20 years.
It's that thing too, where in the Golden Age and in the Silver Age, if you're a supporting character, you get a couple good stories, and then it's basically like, I'm Alfred, I'm sweeping today, and I'm fixing the Batmobile today, and
that Alfred.
I'm putting more scales on Dick's underwear today. Like, it just, weird things happen when you're Alfred.
Yeah, scales in the underwear days, those are tough.
Man, those scaly underoos are the best.
Okay. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
3 sentences or less. What is Crisis on Infinite Earths?
The DC universe must die. Luckily, the Anti-Monitor is hungry. He shall eat it.
I love that.
There you go. Basically, the Anti-Monitor destroys the entire original DC multiverse, and the DC Comics universe becomes about one Earth. Instead of multiple versions, Earth 2, Earth 3, all that stuff, it's only Earth 1.
And this is the continuity that we mentioned a little bit earlier, where Alfred has been with the Wayne family since before Bruce was born. So it's pretty easy for him to step into the role of surrogate father to not only Bruce, but every kind of Bat family member who comes along after him. And he even takes on a mentorship role with some of Bruce's lady friends who come around more often. Like Vicky Vale has a really good relationship with him, which I think is kind of weird.
I don't think it is weird, because I think Alfred at any moment is trying to get Bruce to stop being Batman. And I think one of his tactics to do that is to become friendly with the various lady folk and try to convince them to stick around, so that if maybe they're around long enough and they see the crazy bat ears, they might just want to stay.
That's interesting.
Because as soon as they see the bat ears, most of them want to run.
I just thought it would be weird if you were like, so I'm hooking up with this guy, like maybe we're even dating. He has a manservant, which for me would be a huge hurdle to get over. Okay. And then the manservant wants to be my friend.
What do you got against manservants? People got to work.
Men are threatening.
But people got to work. He's just doing his job.
I don't know. I just think I always thought it was very strange that he was very friendly with all
I could see
like
that.
Beyond being polite. He's just like, let's be bros. And they're usually like, yeah, you seem British.
It's the accent.
It must be.
It's also the mustache.
Yes. Yes.
Very disarming.
Alfred's close involvement with the Bat family earns him the respect of several members of the Justice League once they all kind of have the opportunity to meet him, including Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and all of the Teen Titans, who at various points throughout their respective continuities will go out of their way to compliment Alfred when speaking to Batman.
Superman loves his tea.
Superman loves everything about Alfred. I mean, what's not to love? In the 1980s, introduces the idea that Alfred is/has been romantically involved with Dr. Leslie Tompkins.
Yes.
Dr. Leslie Tompkins is a doctor friend of Bruce Wayne's.
Yes, a friend of Bruce's parents.
Yes. Alfred puts an end to his involvement with Leslie when Stephanie Brown dies of what appears to be neglect while under Leslie's care.
Wow, we're already in the 2000s.
Well,
holy God.
Yeah. But we're doing a little bit of hopping right now.
Okay.
Just because we're going to focus on the relationship.
All right. I was like, wow, we're already in like 2004.
Yeah, this isn't actually what happened. Stephanie went away to Africa to have a baby, and it's retconned not too long after that, so it doesn't really matter. But basically, Alfred dated Leslie and then got mad at her and dumped her, and they never got together again. In the Knight's Quest storyline, which ran from 93 to 94, Alfred returns to England accompanying Bruce Wayne in order to aid him because he's become a paraplegic. Why did that happen to him, Jason?
Because of Bane. I broke his back.
That's right, you did. You made Alfred cry.
I picked up the... This is not a good Bane. I picked up his back, the Batman, in case you didn't know.
Okay.
And I broke him. I broke the Batman. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Free yourself of your legs. That was a Bane joke. It was a terrible Bane. I'm sorry.
That's true.
But that's what Nightfall is.
Yeah.
Bane is basically like, you know whose back I should break? Batman's.
And
Crack.
Night Quest is the follow-up story to that.
With the character Azrael as takes over as Batman.
Yes. Alfred can't really deal with the fact that Bruce is being incredibly irresponsible and he's endangering his recovery, and a rift grows between them, which is kind of a story point that happens a lot.
Yes, that is after Night's End. When Bruce comes back, he can walk again, and he takes on the mantle of the Bat again. He challenges Azrael, and he just kind of wants to become Batman again. And Alfred's like, "You're crazy. You literally weren't walking a month ago. Relax." And Bruce is like, "I gotta fight crime, Alfred." And Alfred's like, "You're crazy. I'm out of here."
So, like Jason mentioned, Bruce eventually returns to Gotham City. He becomes Batman again. Alfred elects to remain in England and tenders his resignation to the Wayne family. Mm-hmm. Now, tendering your resignation is one of the hardest things a man will ever have to do. So why not help keep Professor Jason and I from having to tender our resignation to the Mind University? Nobody wants that. Head on over to patreon.com/Jawin, Jawin, and you can help us clean our bat caves, stitch up our wounds, and design new cowls, and get an amazing set of rewards for your donations, like the Geek History Lesson Extra podcast, where this week we find out which Batman ally is Alfred's favorite.
It's like getting an extra jammy Dodger when you didn't ask for one.
But now back to England. So while he's in England... Every time somebody goes, that's not the national anthem, right?
I know, but every time...
That's Rule Britannia.
Every time there's a movie that they go to England and they do that montage or whatever, they show Big Ben, they always play that song.
Because it's royalty free.
I know.
To the public domain. They even do it in The Great Mouse Detective. So because he gets a little restless, Alfred then goes on a bunch of amazing race-inspired vacations all over the world, including trips to Antarctica and the Bahamas, because he got money and nothing else to do. Dick Grayson eventually tracks Alfred down in England, and after several months of Alfred being gone, he kind of goes there with the goal of convincing Alfred to return to Wayne Manor and to return to Bruce. It happens in
Nightwing, Alfred's Return, #1.
That's right. This storyline also reveals a lot of what we now know about Alfred's history. This is the stage actor stuff and talking about his life before he came to the United States. It's really, really interesting.
I actually like that issue a lot because, the main thrust of the storyline is Alfred goes back to the theater company that he left. And he romanticizes it. He tries
visits a lady love.
He tries to visit an old lady love. He finds a child that he thinks is his. I can't remember at the end if it's confirmed whether it's his or not. But basically, the end of the storyline is he kind of realizes that he romanticized it too much, and that to him the theater doesn't matter as much as helping people.
Mm-hmm. And you also learn during this story that Alfred had been engaged and married, and that he gave up all that life in order to come to America and work for the Wayne family.
That's right.
The next major appearance by Alfred is in No Man's Land, basically.
Although you forgot, I have to mention this because this is one of my favorite Alfred moments.
Please.
Before No Man's Land, if you read this issue, Nightwing, Alfred's Return, he wears a blue and yellow costume.
Oh, he does.
Sort of
I know where you're going.
A halfway point between the 1970s disco wing or 1980s disco wing costume and the black and blue that us Nightwing fans love.
Sexy Nightwing costume.
Now, in the first Nightwing miniseries, before he got his ongoing series, his costume gets kind of ripped up, and Dick tries to go back out in that costume, and Alfred's like, "Wait a minute, no. I made you something better," and Alfred makes him the black and blue costume. So to me, that is a great Alfred moment because it proves that
is a great Alfred moment.
Alfred has great design choice.
There you go. So back to No Man's Land. It's of course the Bat Family crossover event in 1999 where there's a giant earthquake and Gotham becomes under martial law. And Alfred mainly features there in an issue called Legends of the Dark Knight #118, although he is present throughout the whole story. And basically what happens during this particular issue is Batman has been missing for some time, and he leaves Alfred in charge of everything. And you get a chance to see Alfred in a leadership role with the rest of the Bat family working as auxiliary agents, which is very, very interesting. And Alfred uses his particular set of skills to gather information in the fallen society that Gotham City has become, and to learn about the gangs that have cropped up and how they can best attack them. And we even get some Alfred fighting scenes, although in the big one, he does end up having to be rescued by Batman, but he's not a vigilante, so it was just cool to see, really.
He has a cool hobo outfit. Like, see, that
Isn't it cool, though?
There is where he looks like a homeless American Sherlock Holmes. So there you go. Because he's got a big hat and a trench coat.
Yes.
And he smells like garbage.
Yeah, probably. Post No Man's Land, there is a story about a story featured in the Gotham Gazette, written by a reporter who suggests to Commissioner Gordon that Alfred is in fact Bruce Wayne's biological father, and that he masterminded the murder of Thomas Wayne with his wife Martha so that he could have Martha all to himself. And there are several scenes that follow throughout the Bat books, including Alfred apologizing to the graves of Thomas and Martha because he regards Bruce as his own son and that he's not really his son, and Bruce telling Alfred that he'd been a good father. And it's a lot of Alfred coming to terms with just how unconsciously he did step into the role of being Bruce's father, and whether or not that's a betrayal of the trust that his biological parents put in Alfred.
Interesting.
To look after Bruce.
Yeah.
It's a really good story. It's a little bit of super dick Batman, but eventually that all kind of comes to this nice conclusion. And then Final Crisis happens.
Wow, we're already at Final Crisis?
We are already at Final Crisis.
Holy God.
Tell me, what is Final Crisis?
We're doing a lot of jumping around in this. Okay. Final Crisis is basically where Darkseid invades the Earth. It's written by Grant Morrison, and Darkseid wins. And the storyline is like how the heroes are going to finally defeat Darkseid, even though he finally won. And probably the most important story beat in it is that Batman dies basically by ensuring that Superman can later defeat Darkseid.
Yes. The kind of the biggest change for Alfred in the post Final Crisis world, other than Bruce Wayne being dead, is that he's the one stuck raising Damian Wayne, who basically hates him.
Damian Wayne, the yes. biological son of Bruce Wayne. His mother is Talia Ghul.
Yeah. And it's not really until Battle for the Cowl that Alfred allows Damian to go out on his first missions as Robin. And that's the thing that Damian is really pushing for. Like, I deserve to be Robin. I deserve to follow in my father's footsteps. I'm so much better than everybody else. And Damian to me exemplifies that Alfred has infinite patience and infinite love for the Bat family, because he takes a lot of crap from Batman, but from all the Robins, especially like more than the Batgirls, I would argue. And he takes the most crap from Damian, but he does eventually allow him to go out as Robin. But when he does allow Damian to go out for the first time, he calls Squire and teams her up with Damian to go out when they're looking for Tim Drake. Squire is, there are Batman analogs in Britain called Knight and Squire. Squire is a girl. She kind of looks like a weird jester, but she's really cool. And I really like that Alfred's like, I need a guide for Damian. Let's call another Brit.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that story. I like Knight and Squire a lot. They're kind of silly, but I really like them. And then when they get a serious moment like this in the Batman universe, because their standalone story is very silly, it's nice to see that you can take them a little bit more seriously. And Alfred is also the person most responsible for convincing or helping to convince Dick Grayson that he should be the person to take up the mantle of Batman. Yep. Because Dick, of course, is the logical choice, but I would say he's the one who struggles the most with the idea of like stepping up and being Batman.
Yes.
And Alfred, of course, instills the confidence in him to do so.
And Alfred gets an amazing moment in the first Dick Grayson Batman issue of the title Batman. I can't remember the number, but they do a lot of scenes where they show you like the funeral they had for Bruce. And of course, Bruce is not dead, but it doesn't matter.
He's pretending.
They think he's all dead, and them seeing like the messages that Bruce recorded messages for all of them.
Yes.
And so Alfred watches the message that Bruce and cries, and then they show you the moment.
That's a great scene.
Yes, but the greater scene to me is Superman shows up with the remains of what they think is Batman's body in the Batcave, and and Dick Grayson is there, Tim Drake's there, and Alfred's there, and Alfred for a second tries to go get them tea. He's like, would you like to get tea? And Superman stops and goes like, yes, that would be lovely, and then stops him and goes like, oh my God, Alfred, I didn't think about, like, this is essentially like, you just lost your own son. And Alfred breaks right in front of Superman.
Yeah.
And he's like, forgive me, sir, I lost my son.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's a
making me sad just thinking.
It's a hell of a moment. It's a really good, strong moment.
I also think that moment is carried by the fact that it is Superman. It is a character who can be sensitive to that because when you live your life surrounded by the Bat family, I don't think they're very open to emotional cues.
Well, going off of Bruce now.
Yeah.
And are you going to talk about what Bruce's message said for Alfred?
I was not, but you can.
Bruce's message told Alfred to take control of the Outsiders.
Yes, it did.
Which was Batman's secret strike team at the time.
Also, I think I know it's not intentional, but I think it's funny that he puts Alfred inside of the Outsiders.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know that's just a coincidence, but it's kind of funny. So eventually, Tim Drake, the third and best Robin, finally...
Okay.
He is. It's a scientific fact. He finally convinces everybody else that Bruce Wayne is not dead, even though I wrote deadly. He's simply lost in time and space. Alfred is the one to find several clues for his master's whereabouts in the space-time continuum.
In the mansion, actually.
Yeah, he's lost in the space continuum. And a lot of the clues are in the art that is kind of throughout Wayne Manor. I'm making gestures like everybody can see. Even after Bruce Wayne's return to the present, he founds Batman Inc. And all that Alfred kind of has to really do is like help him run the house and look after Damian. So like Bruce Wayne comes back, everybody's really happy, and Alfred kind of just goes back to his normal job, what he's been doing all along.
Well, Alfred sticks with Dick and Damian.
Yes, he does.
And Bruce travels the world to set up all the subsidiaries of Batman Incorporated.
Yep. And then the New 52 happens. Jason, what's the New 52?
The New 52 is the DC reboot where Barry Allen missed his mom, traveled back in time, screwed things up along the way, and reset the entire DC timeline to where now the DC timeline has only existed for 5 years. Batman's only been Batman for 5 years, 6 years. Superman's only been Superman for 5 years, and everybody's young again.
So remember how I told you that Alfred's history doesn't get any retcons?
Yeah.
That was kind of a lie, because he gets, like all the other characters, he gets a retcon in the New 52. And
no!
Yes, and I am going to give you his new origin right now.
Okay.
So it turns out that Jarvis, Alfred's daddy, Alfred's dad, who is working as the butler for Thomas and Martha Wayne, has been blackmailed by the Court of Owls to set a trap for Martha Wayne, who was pregnant at the time.
Okay.
And although Jarvis refuses, she still gets in an accident and winds up miscarrying the baby because the Court of Owls is just that good. Mm-hmm. Jarvis resigns from service to the Wayne family and writes a letter to Alfred warning him not to follow in his footsteps. He's like, don't come to Gotham. It's awful scary here. But before Jarvis can send the letter, he is murdered. And Alfred, of course, goes on to take his father's place because that's what a good son does. You take up your father's duty.
Okay, so he's murdered instead of just dying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's just a little more involved in the story. Mm-hmm. During Batman Eternal, Alfred is reunited with his long-lost daughter, Julia Pennyworth. And she's derivative of the French daughter that we talked about earlier, whose name was Julia Camac. So it's just kind of nice to see that, even though it's not explicitly the same character, that we have this nod to an older part of his history. You
know, interesting also during the New 52 is they started doing the thing in the writing that I think is interesting is that they finally gave Alfred a code name. And if it had appeared earlier than the New 52, I just never noticed it.
I don't think so.
But Batman over the radio started calling Alfred Penny 1.
Yes.
And then Julia gets the code name Penny 2.
Yes, she does. Which I think that's cute. I think that would be an interesting thing to adopt into the movies. Mm-hmm. I mean, Julia will never be in the movies, but it's just, I don't know. Code names are fun. Then during the Endgame storyline, I would say Alfred gets maybe his most significant moment of the New 52.
Sure.
Because the Joker cuts off his hand.
Yep, the Joker shows up to Wayne Manor and cuts off Alfred Pennyworth's hand.
Yes. And that is kind of more or less where we have Alfred right now.
Yeah. Well, Bruce Wayne had forgotten that he has been Batman for a while because of the in-game storyline. Yes. Commissioner Gordon has been Batman for a while. And where we are right now, Batman has just shown back up to the mansion and reclaimed his identity as Batman. And Alfred is like, you go get him, sir.
Yeah, he's there like Marcy to support him.
Although you did forget let's forget the other interesting thing that Alfred is doing right now in continuity, where he is
the We Are Robin
where
stuff.
He is secretly funding the vigilantes known as the Robins in the title We Are Robin.
Yes, and he is the one responsible for sending messages out from, quote, the nest.
Yes, and he gathering them and funding them with equipment. So
yes.
That's where we are with Alfred in the comic book DC universe right now.
Yes, disseminating the Bat message to the world in his own way. So now we're going to talk about some of the other incarnations that we know him from.
Okay.
In his other incarnations, Alfred is basically more or less the same. He's that kind of polished butler guy with a tiny mustache, with the notable exception of Batman Earth 1. Beware the Batman, the CGI animated show, and Gotham have derived a lot of their Alfred characterizations from. So what is Batman Earth 1? I'm so glad you asked.
Wait, what's Batman Earth 1?
Well, it is an alternate reality Elseworlds story by Jeff Johns with art by Gary Frank.
It's not technically an Elseworlds story, but sure.
Well, it's another Earth story.
It's another Earth in the multiverse.
Yeah, that's true. Alfred is a Royal British Marine in the storyline, and he meets Thomas Wayne during a tour of duty in the Middle East, where they become close friends. Such good friends, in fact, that Alfred saves Thomas's life and loses his right leg in the process. He eventually comes to Gotham City to visit his friend, who also, I think it's worth noting, paid to get him a really great prosthetic leg. And he learns that Thomas has been receiving death threats for some time because he's been working on this mayoral campaign, so he's in more spotlight. So, death threats happen.
Yeah.
And Alfred tries to convince Thomas, Martha, and Bruce from going out to the movies that night, and I think you know where this is going, although he is ultimately unsuccessful and the Wayne parents die.
Oh, no.
Alfred is shocked to learn that Thomas and Martha named him as Bruce's guardian, and the GCPD have to be the ones to tell him that. And then he takes on the mission of raising Bruce in his friend's honor, and there's a really cool line where Bruce says something like, "But what am I going to call you, or who are you going to be now?"
Well, Bruce is like, he just found out, and he's basically like, "Who the hell are you?"
Oh yeah, that's what.
And Alfred, I think, tries to say that I'm a friend of your parents, and Bruce doesn't get it, and he just goes, "I'm your butler."
Yeah, it's so great. When Bruce eventually grows up to be a human person and takes on the mantle of Batman, Alfred reluctantly becomes his confidant, even though he repeatedly suggests that Batman should carry a gun instead. This is a theme that carries through more than just one of the Batman Earth 1 books, although he is not above training hard with Bruce Wayne Batman. He does go on to save Bruce's life by shooting and killing Mayor Oswald Cobblepot, a Batman villain name that may sound familiar to you. And he also has a daughter who is living in South Korea. I don't think she's named. I
don't think so either.
But it is an interesting, again, tie back to the Julia character. And I think it's fascinating that two modern writers have decided that she's something that they want to bring up in Alfred's past.
I also think it's interesting because this Earth 1, the hard-edged, Sean Connery-looking Alfred was one of the, I think one of the most radical reinventions of Alfred ever. And that's one of the great things that the Earth 1 books do. Mm-hmm. But this, for some reason, there's something so appealing about that Alfred, and I don't know what it is.
I kind of think it's the James Bond parallel, because that's an archetype that we already know and like. Yep. And it is so opposite because it's just tough and unrefined and unapologetic of what you're used to seeing Alfred as. And that can be what is exciting about the Elseworlds stories, is when they take the name and the basic idea of I'm Batman's helper and turn it on its head and reinvent it. So yeah,
cool.
That's Earth 1.
Where else have we found the Alfred?
Now everything. This is the version that influenced, like I said before, Beware the Batman in Gotham, and in every other TV show. He's basically your clean cut kind of Alfred. The Michael Caine Alfred, and it's he's a little more hands-on. He's a little more working class, a little less refined.
Yep.
And that would be, I would say, the only differences in the movies is that you have a more hands-on and a less I'm your butler who's going to sweep and tidy and make tea. Yep. More of a helper, less of a butler.
Got it.
And that's your Alfreds.
Yay.
Yeah. So why don't we move right into recommended reading?
Great.
The part where we recommend things for you to read.
And if you can find any of these recommendations at geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You see the picture of the book. You click on the picture of the book. It takes you to the book on Amazon. You can click to buy the book. Sometimes you can do that by clicking on the picture of the book. And a little percentage of that clicking of the picture of the book will come back to us at the Mind University and help support the show.
Yes, exactly. So my first recommended reading is going to be Batman Earth 1. There's a volume 1 and there's a volume 2. Because like Jason said, there's something that even though this Alfred is so weird, he's so interesting, and he very much exemplifies what this character is to Bruce Wayne and to Batman. And then if you're looking for more of a classic Batman dynamic, which would be your kind of stuffy butler Alfred who really has to balance out the darkness in Batman, I would recommend All-Star Batman and Robin. Because even though this story is a little bit crazy, I think it's a nice representation of a modern story of your classic Batman. So those are my 2/3, because there's 2 volumes of Batman Earth 1, recommended reading for Mr. Alfred Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth, LMNOP the 4th.
Nice.
Thank you.
Cool. What's the next section of the podcast?
The discussion.
Yes, and we teased it early on in the episode, but today we are going to have a discussion with a man that I am going to claim right now as an Alfred Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth expert. That's right, he is a writer, comic book writer actually. That's more important than a regular writer, I think. He is a comic book writer of such titles as Batman and Robin Eternal, Batman TMNT, and his own creator-owned works called The Woods for Boom Studios. Let's welcome onto the podcast for the discussion of Alfred Pennyworth, James Tynan IV.
Hey, James, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I believe Ashley and I have a whole bunch of Alfred-centric questions to ask you. I claimed you as an Alfred expert.
Oh, boy.
No pressure.
Yeah. So let's dive deep into this, Ashley.
The first thing I want to know is that we did a Meet Cute earlier where we talked about where we first met Alfred. I want to know, where did you first meet Alfred? Or, since he's a character who's a big part of the zeitgeist, where he first inspired you from, where you first really were aware of him.
I mean, I think it was probably Batman Returns, which I think was the first Batman movie I ever saw in theaters. I was still a bit too young for the first movie, even though the second movie's way more messed up.
Yeah, it's a lot creepier.
Yeah, it is.
There's baby murder in like the first 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, it's a fun time. But I'd say where he really coalesced for me was the Batman animated series, and that Alfred and that voice like of Alfred is still how I imagine Alfred to this day. I remember being a little surprised in the comics that he didn't always like look like that.
Me too.
Yeah.
When the first time I saw the mustache, I was really like taken aback. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, so that's really where I like got to know him. But it was always, he's Alfred. He's the best.
As an almighty Batman scribe, what is the aspect of Alfred's personality that you really latch on to when you're writing scenes with him in it?
I mean, he's one of the only people who can make fun of Bruce. That's the best. That's the best part of it. He has an amazing wry sense of humor. That just he can call Batman out in a way no other character can, because he's also like he supports him to a ludicrous degree, and he's there for him every step of the way. But at the same time, he's never agreed with the idea that Bruce should be Batman. Like he's never been fully on board there. So him being able to just kind of like, Bruce, this is silly and weird all the time, and just constantly just point out, oh, everything you're doing is unhealthy. It's the perfect it's the perfect thing.
Is that where you struggle? Is there some struggle with trying to come up with what is the funny Alfred line?
Oh yeah. I mean, like that's always like, because he can deliver such perfect lines in every moment. Like right now I'm writing Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is great because in the issue that just came out this week, I literally have Alfred complaining about the fact that he could have made an amazing dinner and they ordered pizza. And it's just like Alfred at the front door of Wayne Manor holding a huge stack of pizzas, and then they go inside and Michelangelo is riding a skateboard down the ramp and just runs right into him. And it's just like the banter there and just how irritated Alfred is it was perfect. Like, he's he's Alfred. He's great.
So since you are someone who can peek into Alfred's psyche, I want to know, what do you think he does in his free time? Because there has to be some significant chunks of time where he's just alone in Wayne Manor, kind of waiting for stuff to happen.
I think he just sort of wanders around. Like I think he just sort of goes through the old rooms and
Is he constantly dusting?
Yeah, he's just dusting. Like, because you have to imagine a place that big. Every Robin who's ever lived there, their room's still there. He's like making sure all of their stuff's okay. I like that
idea that there's a spare room for every Robin. You also have to imagine there's probably gum behind every statue.
Ew.
Oh yeah, they're little kids.
Ew, that's so gross.
So, well, I would bet he'd be on top of that.
Yeah.
But he's.
But it took him like 10 years.
Oh yeah. But he is he clearly doesn't sleep. Like there's no humanly possible way that he could sleep, because he's always the one who's like calling out Bruce for not being awake, and then he's up in the middle of the night working the back computer while Bruce is out. It's not like he doesn't rest on either point of the day. Like, I don't understand how he functions as a human being.
I think he must also have a sixth sense as a caretaker, because every time somebody wakes up from unconsciousness, Alfred is like the first person they see who's there with a cup of tea. Like, he knew that this second you needed a hot cup of tea.
It's the parent DNA.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Because I mean, he is the father to all these heroes.
Oh yeah.
These vigilantes.
These ragtag bunch of kids.
Yeah.
What's one of the reasons that you think that there are very popular reimaginings of this character that are very different? Like the Earth 1 Alfred is very different from our classic Alfred that we know. Why do you think that people like to explore that?
I mean, the dynamic between Bruce and Alfred, it's like at its core is very simple. And I don't think you'll ever really see the core shift, which is just the idea of this was the loyal butler who, when Bruce's parents died, brought him in and raised him like his own son. And his entire life has been dedicated to Bruce. So there are lots of different ways to do that, and lots of different ways to make that interesting. I think in the modern era, the version we're most used to is the kind of wry butler kind of character. But they've gone into the military aspect of his past before. Sometimes he's a guy in the military. We saw that in Earth 1, we saw that in
Dark Knight.
The Nolan films, and we also but that also goes way back. Like in old continuity, he was married at one point to Mademoiselle Marie, who was a World War II resistance fighter back when that timeline made sense. But it was it's interesting to see how he changes over time, because then there's the version of him that grew up as an actor, and it's like,
I love that.
And there are ways that sort of blends all of that together into sort of peak Alfred, the sort of ideal core of Alfred that all of these different interpretations touch upon. But it's interesting how these characters kind of harden into a core over all these years, because the Alfred that was introduced way back in the beginning of these comics was radically different. He was a portly guy, and
dumpy portly dude.
Yeah, and he was kind of the bumbling sidekick, if anything, and he didn't know Bruce was Batman at first. Yeah. Like, that was part of the joke. And then he died and then came back as a villain at some point.
Awesomely.
Yeah.
Awesomely.
So there are lots of different things that you can do with, all these characters are so elastic. But over time, I think they sort of harden into what are the elements that you need to be a successful Alfred, and we're about to see a new version of him with Jeremy Irons, right? I'm very excited about that. Like, one of the recent trailers, he makes fun of Batman while Batman's about to dive into a building, and it's okay, they've got Alfred. It's all good.
Here's a fun question for you. Which other superhero, does Alfred hate, and what one does he love? Because there have been times where the entire Justice League has come into the Batcave and Alfred has brought down sandwiches or tea or whatever. Which member of the Justice League do you think he just can't stand, and what member do you think he loves?
I would imagine that the one he loves, I think, has to be Clark. It's Superman. Yes. Because Clark's always going to be incredibly polite. He's not going to mess things up. He's always he's conscientious about everyone and everything. And Alfred has a neat house, and he wants everything to stay in its place. And Clark's not going to mess with that. I think in terms of the other characters who are pretty close to Bruce, at least in older continuity, Green Arrow, I would imagine, is the guy who's muddy boots up on the $5,000 scholar. Like
he's trying to always break into Alfred's kitchen to make chili.
Yeah, exactly. Like he doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of Alfred's rules. And if Alfred says like, no, this is how we do it in this house, I think Ollie would be a bit more like, and especially like Ollie's another rich kid, but he's a bit more of a like Bruce is definitely more of a prim and proper rich kid, and I think Ollie's more of the rambunctious rich kid.
Oh yeah,
so
fighting against mom and dad.
Yeah, throw his money around for the sake of it.
Yeah. Like I think he'd be the one that that Alfred would view as the bad influence.
So Alfred Pennyworth and Edwin Jarvis walk into a room. Who is the better butler, and who wins in a fight?
I mean, I think honestly, Alfred wins on both counts. And I mean that like maybe this is just me being totally biased as a Bat writer, but it's Alfred. It has to be Alfred. He is like he does everything. He is ex-military, but he's also the immaculate butler. Like he manages to take care of all of Wayne Manor by himself somehow. Like a house like that should have a staff of like 100.
Yeah.
But like it's just one guy and he keeps everything in order.
Well, and there's also like 4 residents tops, not counting all of Damian's pets.
Yeah. He feeds a cow. Yeah. In the Batcave.
We all know Bat cows been made into hamburgers. Come on.
Oh, that's funny. Is there like a favorite Alfred moment or story for you? Like one that
you didn't write.
Yeah, or one that didn't write. But we're going to come to the one that you did write later in a bit. But yeah, is there an Alfred moment in the comic books that really impresses it to you? Because one that always stands out for me is the one after Bruce came back after Night's End, and Alfred was like, look, you need to rest. The fact that you're putting on this bat suit again is insane. Bye, I'm leaving and going back to England. And it wasn't until Nightwing came and got him that he came back.
Right.
Because for me at the time, I never imagined a time that Alfred would ever leave him.
Right.
That's why it stood out to me.
No, that was an incredible moment. I really liked in one of my favorite stories, like, and it's my answer to a number of these things, and I think I was just the perfect age when it came out, was the Bruce Wayne murderer fugitive storyline.
Oh, yeah.
When like Bruce is still going out and like he has separated Bruce Wayne from Batman, and Alfred is still like helping him out. He's still like going to these little shadow caves all over the city and like straightening things out, and still being Alfred to a almost ridiculous point. Like I loved his devotion in that. In terms of like just killer like Alfred moments, and it's a beat that it's happened a few times, but it's just I always love the moments where Alfred is defending Wayne Manor, like
by himself with a shotgun.
Yeah, it's Alfred with the shotgun.
You want to know one of the best moments of that? Batman versus Predator. Alfred shoots the Predator in the chest with a shotgun.
There are also Sherlock Holmes quotes in that story, which is one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you never read that story. It's really weird, but it's actually quite good.
All right. I wouldn't know anything about crossing Batman over with weird property.
No.
All right, any final questions for our guests?
I think
Ashley?
the final question is, what's your favorite Alfred moment that you've written?
Ooh. I really enjoyed it was a turn that happened in the first Batman Eternal when Hush breaks into Wayne Manor, and it's Alfred and Hush like kind of going at it together. And
it was a little cat and mouse.
Yeah, and like it's Alfred showing that he's no joke. He was a marksman. He knows how to take someone down, and Hush still manages to get the one up on him. Like I really love doing that. Like, but Alfred goes all the way back. My first real published storyline was about Alfred's father in the Fall of the House of Wayne backups to Batman during the Court of Owls storyline, and that was a real like it was a blast to be able to sort of play with his father character, who
Daddy Alfred.
You don't actually get to see a lot of Jarvis Pennyworth, who I didn't make up that name. That's old continuity.
No, we talk about that because we found out, doesn't Jarvis Pennyworth predate
Edwin Jarvis? Yes, he does.
Yeah, Jarvis Pennyworth predates Edwin Jarvis.
All right,
so yeah, it's very interesting. All right,
well done.
Well, thank you, James, for coming on the podcast and being our Alfred expert. Because we promised our listeners that we would have one. Please let our listeners know where they can find you on the internet, and also what awesome comic books of yours they should buy.
Well, you can find me online at on Twitter at James the Fourth, all spelled out. And in terms of my books, right now there are a number of things you can buy from me. I think the big one is Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're moving fast towards the end of that story. It's a 6-issue miniseries. Issue 4 just came out. It's one of the biggest, craziest things I've ever written.
Yeah, guys, if you ever wanted to see Ra's al Ghul and the Shredder have a scene together, your dream has come true.
Oh yeah, and I promise it only gets crazier between now and the end. And aside from that, I have The Woods coming out every month from Boom Studios, and Constantine the Hellblazer is coming out through DC Comics right now as well, co-written by Ming Doyle.
Cool. All right, thanks, James, and make sure to take care of your butler.
All right, will do.
There we go. I think we settled the debate. We definitely proved James as an Alfred expert.
Yes, we did.
I think it was such a great discussion. Guys, go over to Twitter and follow him on Twitter and go buy his Batman books, because you haven't been reading Batman and Robin Eternal. You are crazy, because it's
crazy.
So there you go. Let's move on to the next section of our podcast, the final section, the teaching tweet, where we sum up the character that we just taught you about in 140 characters or less, just like if we were tweeting it on Twitter.
Alfred Pennyworth. He'll draw you a bath. What more could you want?
How many characters does an English dialect use on Twitter?
It depends on if you're going to elongate all of your vowel sounds or if you're just going to use the IPA and do it phonetically.
No, we're elongating.
How many A's in bath?
7.
Many Bothans died. I'm sure it's over 140 by that point.
All right, there you go. Very nice. All right, so that is it for the Alfred Pennyworth, Thaddeus Crane, whatever the hell his middle names are, podcast. Guys, if you need to go check out other episodes of this podcast, like maybe our Batman episode, because he's kind of related to Alfred Pennyworth, you can go do that on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Geek History Lesson. And guys, go over there, give us lots of hearts, give us a rating, and do me a favor. I want you to share this podcast to one of your friends this week, and then share it to us on Twitter. Let us know that you were like, hey, my friend didn't know nothing about Alfred, and now he knows everything about Alfred. He heard you're Alfred expert, and now he's an Alfred expert. And you know what? We'll draw you a bath. Actually, if they want to suggest other superhero butlers for us to talk about in future episodes of Geek History Lesson, where can they do that?
Well, we've done Jarvis and Alfred by this point, so I'm hoping for some more obscure suggestions at geekhistorylesson.com and facebook.com/geekhistorylesson.
That's right. And if you want to complain to us about Twitter and various things that we talk about on this podcast on Twitter, then you can do that for me at Jawin, Jawin, and you can do that for Ashley at Ashley V. Robinson. Guys, go draw yourselves a bath, serve yourself a nice Chardonnay, because it goes excellent with salmon and bass. And we'll be seeing you next week, because I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, will you please close out this masterful lesson on the character that you so aptly called a homeless American Sherlock Holmes?
Well, Master Jason, I do believe that class is now dismissed.